Hi, welcome to the channel. My name is Itzik and today I'm going to review my 2023 Yamaha Tenere 700. So if you're in the market for one, it's your first bike, or like me, upgrading from a smaller bike and you really want to see how it feels to ride one of these, this is the video for you. Let's start. So these couple of months were really fun. A lot of riding opportunities were open to me, and I rode in new places, met new people. It was really fun riding this kind of bike. But the bonding with the bike was not immediately. I encountered a lot of issues that I only heard about when watching YouTube videos. You know, things like top heaviness and the weight and the suspension. You don't really know how it's going to feel until you ride off-road. And my first off-road was in gnarly terrain, and I thought it would be easy for me. The first time it was not. I returned from this trip and I didn't know if I made the right decision buying this bike. So I had to make changes to the bike and to my riding skill to really enjoy riding this kind of bike. And I want to show you in this video what were the issues and how I overcome them. So I hope at the end of this video you will really know if this bike is for you or not. Okay, so let's go over the bike and see all the accessories I put on it. I will try to link all the accessories in the description below. I replaced the tire to a Motoz Rallz, great on-road and off-road tire. I really recommend this one. This one is the rear ABS protection, very cheap, very recommended. The plastic here and on the other side is the ACERBIS swing arm protection. This protects from the swing arm from the exhaust when it bends, and I will talk about it later on this video. Good to have ACERBIS X-Grip from scratches from your boot. Also the pads here from scratches when you stand up. This one is great. This is RNG case protector, and the water pump. This is the case for the clutch. I got another one for the engine on the other side. I replaced the bash plate to a 4mm one. Got the GV crash bars. You have a lot of other ones. I got this one, it's okay. Bulkbuster handguards, great addition. Again, the Motoz Rallz tire on the front. By the way, this front fender, you can raise it with the screws here, so mud will not get stuck under the fender. Another great add-in, not expensive, the protector for the headlights, very cheap, guards a very expensive headlight. Let's move here. The RNG engine protector here. Again, the the ACERBIS X-Grip. The ACERBIS spring arm protection on this side, and here the ACERBIS chain guide. It's a great thing. And this is the GV rear rack. So here you can use this one to move the bike if you need it, to lift it up. And this plate is great. You have a lot of areas to tie your bags. And also this one is not out like the regular Yamaha one, so your leg is not stuck here. Let's talk about an issue that I I didn't know about it, and I don't see anybody talking about it in YouTube videos. And this, before you buy the bike, before you even consider buying this bike, call your insurance company. See how much you need to pay for this kind of bike, because my previous bike and this bike has very different insurance rate, and I had to call them before. I called them before I bought this bike and know the amount. I know about people that bought this bike, called the insurance company and got the amount and was amazed. So just call your insurance company before you buy this bike. Okay, so weight. This bike weighs something like 210 kilos. I think with all the accessories. Naked, it's something like 204. And I moved from a 140 kilo bike, and I really felt that the weight issues. First time I did something simple like deep sand, and I got stuck in the deep sand, and somebody had to help me push it outside. I could not do it alone. Second time when the bike fell on me and dropped my leg, and I could not lift it up like I could my old bike. And on the third time I felt this bike weight was gnarly downhill, when I pushed and when I pressed on the bike, and it didn't stop, it just keep going. Okay. And you really need to know that this bike, it looks like a dirt bike, and when you stand up and ride this bike, it really feels like a dirt bike. But when you are in zero speed, and this bike, you really feel the weight. So you have to do a mental change in your mind, so you cannot ride alone anymore. I'm riding alone now, but in very simple terrain. If you're going to do something more complicated, do it with a friend, and because you can get into serious trouble when riding this alone on gnarly terrain. So let's keep in mind. So, top heaviness, how it really feels like when you're off-road. So you saw a lot of YouTube videos that tell you that because of the high engine and the high fuel tank, the center of gravity is here. And I knew about it, but when I was off-roading for the first time and I wanted to lean the bike like I used to lean on my previous bike, there's a certain angle that you just cannot bring it back. It's too heavy. So I had to make adjustment in my riding skill to know that in certain situations, in certain angles, I cannot lift it back. So first thing I do is know the limitation and which angle I can bring back. And the second one that helped me a lot more was that in shorter rides, I'm coming with less fuel, and there's certain gravity, the center of gravity is a little bit more, so I can lean it more. So this is the change that I made about this issue. Okay, so what is the issue with the exhaust? There's a weak point in this bike, and this weak point is here in the exhaust mount. And every time you fell to the right side, this exhaust just bends in a little bit. It depends on the heat you get, but people usually just push it back out. How I address this issue is, the first thing I did was the ACERBIS swing arm protection that saves your bike from scratches. And there's a second thing that you can do. I didn't do it yet. I don't know if I will. There's a pannier rack. that for bags, so you can put it on each side, and it actually protects the exhaust, because you get the heat on the pannier rack. So this is a thing you can do. I didn't do it, but you can walk around this issue with exhaust. So suspension, I knew about the suspension issues, that it's good for only people in 70 to 80 kilos, and I'm in this weight limit, but I thought that the suspension will be better. So when I rode in the desert on rocky terrain, I really felt every rock and every bump. It was really horrible riding that day. The issue, I overcome this issue when I reduced my tire pressure. My tire pressure at the beginning, everybody told me tire pressures are great between 32 and 35. And when I reduced this tire pressure to something like 23 to 25, the suspension issue, I don't feel it anymore. I can really go on gnarly terrain and ride on rocks and bumps and stuff. It's really helped me. There's two ways to upgrade the suspension of this bike. It's the cheapest way to change the springs. I hear that it's really helped. And the more expensive one just changed the entire suspension. So my advice to you is like I did: ride a couple of months with the default suspension. Check that you can ride. Depend on your riding skill. If you need to really change it, you can. By the way, you can. There's a clicks here that you can adjust your suspension. I didn't do it. So start from the default and go to the upgrade if you need it. Tires. So when you get this bike, you get the STRs. If I'm not mistaken, the STRs for the road. It's very dangerous off-road in sand and mud, but it's great on the road. So if you're only using this bike for on-road use, you can go with STR. But if you're going off-road, I recommend Nobi tires. I replaced the tires with a Motoz Rallz on both wheels. Great tire. Got great traction. It's great for wet surfaces. It's great for mud, and it's self-cleaning in the mud. And overall, it's a great tire. It just you not get as much kilometers for this like you get on the road tire. But I think if you want good traction and be stable on the off-road, it's a great tire. Okay, so let's talk about the size of the bike and its height in specific. This is a very high bike, and you see I'm 185 centimeters in height, and I can flat foot both my legs. Also, when I'm standing up, this bike is very comfortable, and I really feel very comfortable on the bike. If you're a shorter rider, I recommend that you do a test run on the bike before you buy the bike to see if it's very comfortable for you. You have a couple of options to lower the seat. Even you have a lowering kit. But again, this is a big bike. It's heavy. It's very high. You have to make sure you are comfortable and you can handle the bike. In the top heaviness section, I mentioned that in certain angle, when you the bike is really feel very heavy, so you have to lower your legs to adjust and put it back up. So you have to be really comfortable, and you have your legs on the ground to really handle this kind of big bike. So check this thing before you buy it. Okay, so if anybody asks what's the limitation of the fuel tank before you are running out of fuel,
So it's 298 kilometers. As you can see, I cannot start the bike. Okay, let's talk about the 2023 new TFT Dash. By the way, you can operate it with this wheel. Very easy to press wheel. If it's got stuck, maybe you have dust or sand in it, but it's really easy to operate. The only issue I found with this TFT is you see the blinking on the left side. This tell you that in other bikes it tells you that you have something like 20 or 30 kilometers to get to the fuel station. In this issue, I found that it really tells me that you have another 100 kilometers to ride. So it's very confusing. So what I did, and you don't see any issues on this on the forums. I didn't know about this issue at all until somebody told me. So how I address it is that I using the trip 1 and trip 2 on the dash. When I go to the fuel station, I zero out trip 2, and then I know how much I'm really traveling. Trip 1 is only for short rides. I zero it. When it starts blinking, I zero trip 1, and then I count. I know that I have about 100 kilometers to ride. Okay, so I tried this once on off-road and on use, and I got to 298 kilometers until I ran out of fuel. Off-road ride, and I got stuck. But don't push it. Just something like 250 kilometers, you need to find a fuel station. Let's talk about the ABS in this bike. So you need to remember disabling the ABS when you get to the off-road section. You can use the TFT screen and the wheel here to disable the ABS on the front or both wheels. But the issue is that when you hit the kill switch or turning off the bike with the key, the ABS returns to active. So on my previous bike I didn't have ABS, but here I need to remember all the time to disable it every time I stop the bike. So what I did to overcome this issue was stalling the bike in gear. So if you press the brake and release the clutch, you stall it in gear, and the ABS configuration is not coming back on. So this is good practice if you stop for short stops. If you are stopping for a long time, just turn off the bike, but you have to remember to disable the ABS, because it's very important on downhills to not be with the ABS. Okay, on-road use, this is a very great bike on-road. Really what I wanted from this bike, to go to long rides on the road and get to the off-road sections. Even with the knobby tires, you don't feel any vibration in high speeds. Really planted on the road. You can maneuver between cars and traffic jams. Really great bike for this kind of use. Issues I found: 185 centimeters in height, so this windshield doesn't really help me get the wind off my face. It counts something like here. You can increase the size with accessories and stuff. And this seat, it's not really great. It's okay. If you really want to ride more than 40 minutes on this bike, you need to replace the seat. You can get a seat concept or a Rallz seat, whatever you want, but again, this is a great bike on the ride. Okay, so we got to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I showed you all the issues on the bike and how to overcome them, and you can decide now if this is a bike for you or not.
If you enjoyed the content, please consider subscribing, and I hope to see you in the next videos. So bye bye for now.